On duty.
Friday. Not all who was readily available. Who was
on
here
duty?
Friday
Right.
night, Saturday
It's
morning?
a different question. Were you?
Yeah, I was here.
You were the manager. Okay.
You was here Friday night,
Yeah.
Saturday morning.
Saturday as well. Yeah, I've been here around the clock.
You don't got a room that we can see?
Not at this time, we're sold out.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not. You guys aren't registered guests.
Who are you?
Who are you? Who are you?
But if you're not, this is private
Private
property.
property.
But who
Right,
are
who
you?
are
We don't know who you are.
What-
Talking to you.
what-
The hotel.
But you ain't state that. We don't know who you are.
you
Come
just
and tell
walked
us
I'm
what
with
we
the
gotta
hotel. If
do.
you're
What's
not a
your name?
registered guest.
Let me see some identification that you with the hotel. We trying to.
I'm not- this is my-
Man, look. We trying to get a room. That's all we trying to do.
Because
We
this
trying to get a
particular,
room.
now this looks
And
like a
that's
different
all right.
issue because this looks discriminatory. You got all
Welcome
these
to the
police
Deep
officers.
Dive. Today we're looking into a really disturbing case, the disappearance of Kenneka Jenkins.
That's right, from the Crown Plaza Chicago O'Hare Hotel back on September 9th, 2017.
Yeah, Saturday night. And we're going to be working through the events and the allegations that are presented in the screenplay source material you provided.
Exactly. The idea is to really pull out the key details for you, the listener, and try to navigate what's presented.
It's a complex situation, a lot of unanswered questions.
Definitely. So our mission, if you like, is to walk you through that sequence of events from the screenplay, pointing out where things get, well, confusing, or where different stories start to crop up.
Okay, let's dive in. Where does the screenplay start us off that night?
It begins around 11:00 p.m. Young people are arriving at the Crown Plaza, heading up to the 11th floor. Seems like there was a party, or at least a gathering.
Right, a gathering, and there were videos.
Yes, the screenplay mentions 2 live videos coming from that room,
Oh, yeah.
and in the second one, there's a specific detail.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Kenneka is apparently handed a pretty large bottle of cognac, and she takes a drink, a noticeable one.
Okay. That detail's highlighted. Why do you think?
Well, it could be significant later, couldn't it? It might, give some context to her state or behavior as the night goes on. Something the screenplay wants us to keep in mind, perhaps.
Makes sense. So, party on the 11th floor. Did things get loud?
Apparently so. There was a noise complaint, and security management got involved around midnight, up on the 11th floor.
Okay, security shows up, and then Kenneka leaves.
Yeah, the timeline suggests she left that 11th floor room sometime after that, maybe around midnight, maybe closer to 1:00 a.m. There's a bit of fuzziness there.
Right, so she leaves the 11th floor. Where does the screenplay say she went next?
It shifts focus to the 9th floor. So she's there between like 1:00 a.m. and 1:20 a.m.
The 9th floor. Okay, and what happens there?
Well, this is where the screenplay introduces a really key question. It poses the idea of Kenneka potentially meeting a staff member in room 926.
A staff member?
Yes. And it asks, did something go wrong in that interaction? It hangs that question out there.
Wow, okay. And there's footage mentioned.
There is. The screenplay refers to 9th floor surveillance footage. And it alleges this footage shows Kenneka being carried out of a room.
Carried, not walking.
That's the allegation in the screenplay, yeah. Carried, which immediately raises a ton of questions, obviously.
Like what?
Well, the screenplay itself asks, if she was carried out, did whoever was carrying her then say, go back up to the 11th floor? Did they need to get her keys, her phone?
Ah, right. Practical things.
And maybe more critically, did they tell anyone else back on the 11th floor what had supposedly happened down on the 9th?
So suggesting others might have known something was wrong.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
It introduces that possibility. So this whole question of whether she was walking on her own or being carried becomes like a major point of confusion.
Okay, so that's the 9th floor situation according to the screenplay. What's next in the timeline?
Around 1:25 a.m., it places Kenneka in an elevator.
Right. And there's a detail there, too.
Yeah, about her maybe pushing the wrong button, giggling a bit. But interestingly, the screenplay itself questions that.
Questions the giggling. Why?
Well, think about it. If the previous scene, the allegation, is that she was being carried out of a room, possibly incapacitated?
Then giggling in an elevator feels off.
Exactly. It seems contradictory.
Yeah.
So the screenplay flags it, making you wonder about the accuracy or maybe the interpretation of these different moments.
It forces you to ask which version, if any, is right.
Precisely. It highlights the inconsistencies.
Okay, so elevator at 1:25 a.m. What else is happening around then?
The screenplay notes The front desk making hotel keys.
Making keys at 1:25 a.m.
Yeah. And then shortly after, it mentions a security guard seen running with hotel room keys, but on a lower level.
Survey with keys. So the screenplay asks if this was connected.
Right. Was this related to Kenneka? Were they trying to get into a room, maybe that room on the 9th floor? Why the urgency?
It just adds another layer of, well, strangeness.
It really does. The timing, the running guard, the keys. It's all quite suggestive, or at least puzzling.
And then there's another piece involving the front desk. Something about Andrew Holmes.
Yes, the screenplay brings in a statement attributed to Andrew Holmes and also references a specific photo shown to Kenneka's mother, Teresa Martin.
And what do those suggest?
They apparently indicate that Kenneka was seen passing the front desk, walking past it.
Walking past the front desk. But wait, how does that fit with being carried? Or the elevator confusion?
That's the thing. It doesn't easily fit. It seems to conflict, right? If she's walking past the front desk around this time, it contradicts the idea she was maybe unconscious or being taken somewhere else just moments before.
So, another major discrepancy.
A key one. And it's these kinds of conflicting details that really fuel all the speculation and the different theories about what truly happened.
Okay. So where does she go after supposedly passing the front desk?
The timeline jumps again. Around 1:32 a.m., she's seen in the first floor kitchen.
The kitchen. How did she get there?
That's not really explained clearly. And from the kitchen, somehow she ends up in the parking lot.
That seems like a huge jump, kitchen to parking lot.
It is. The screenplay flags this as a major gap.
Mm-hmm.
How did she make that transition, especially given all the uncertainty about her state?
Yeah, it feels like pieces are missing.
Big pieces. And the screenplay specifically asks, which hotel employees were actually in that kitchen area at 1:30 in the morning.
Good question. Was anyone there?
Well, it even brings in information from court documents. Apparently, a chef was in the kitchen then, preparing food.
Preparing food at that hour. For who?
Exactly the question the screenplay raises. Who needs food prepared at that specific very early hour? It just adds to this feeling that there was activity going on that isn't fully accounted for.
Okay, so that's one version of the timeline full of gaps and confusing points. But then the screenplay shifts gears, right?
Drastically. It introduces a completely different narrative, a much, much darker one.
How does this alternative version start?
It rewinds slightly, back to around 12:30 a.m., and it alleges that two individuals, Lenore and Bray, deliberately lured Kenneka to some kind of hidden hallway.
Lured her. So not just wandering off.
No, this version suggests it was intentional. Pre-planned deception. Taking her somewhere specific. A total departure from the first timeline.
Wow. And it gets even more elaborate, doesn't it?
Oh, yes. This alternative timeline claims Kenneka's own mother was involved, positioned near a basement entrance, acting as a lookout.
Her mother. As a lookout. That's a huge accusation.
It is. And it doesn't stop there. It introduces the idea of an, quote, advanced security team.
Advanced security, what does that mean?
According to this narrative, they were bribed, possibly by Lenore, to manipulate the surveillance system.
It's like turning off cameras?
Exactly. Cutting feeds at key moments, monitoring hallways, essentially facilitating whatever was supposedly happening.
This sounds like a conspiracy theory building.
It absolutely takes on that structure. It paints a picture of a coordinated, deliberate effort.
And what about Kenneka's phone?
This alternative timeline alleges that around 1:20 a.m., Lenore actually planted fabricated evidence on Kenneka's phone.
Planted evidence? To what end?
Presumably to create a false trail, right? To mislead investigators or cover up the supposed real events. It points directly towards a conscious cover-up attempt.
Okay, this is getting intricate. What else is in this version?
There's a claim about an off-duty police officer.
An officer involved? How?
Allegedly, around 1:25 a.m., this officer was controlling the elevators, restricting movement, basically enforcing a kind of lockdown within parts of the hotel.
An officer enforcing a lockdown, that implies official involvement, or at least corruption.
That's the clear implication, yes. It widens the circle of alleged participants significantly.
And Bray, who supposedly helped lure Kenneka earlier.
The timeline claims she snuck back into the hotel around 1:31 a.m.
Snuck back in. Why would that detail be included?
Maybe to explain her presence later, while still maintaining she was involved in the initial alleged act. It tries to tie up loose ends within its own narrative.
It feels like every detail is meant to point towards something sinister.
That's certainly the thrust of this alternative account. The advanced security team, for instance, is mentioned again. Allegedly, they were watching monitors while a, quote, crime was being committed.
actively watching and covering things up.
Yes, covering up suspicious activity. It suggests widespread knowledge and complicity among this supposed security group.
Were there any outside witnesses mentioned in this version?
Interestingly, yes. The screenplay mentions hotel guests who apparently saw an argument between Lenore and a security officer.
An argument where?
Near the lobby entrance. And this was supposedly happening despite that alleged lockdown being in effect.
So suggesting things weren't entirely under control, maybe? Or that something unusual was visibly happening?
Could be interpreted that way.
Yeah.
It adds a layer of potential, albeit unverified, corroboration from bystanders.
And then there's a specific character introduced, Monifa.
Right. Monifa is portrayed as someone who got suspicious. She allegedly saw Lenore with the security officer, followed them, and even recorded their interactions.
Recorded them, like audio or video.
The screenplay suggests she captured recordings, overhearing talk about a cover-up, maybe even filming evidence being planted, or seeing the mother sneaking around. Monifa becomes the key witness figure in this narrative.
So Monifa has the proof, according to this story.
That's the claim. She's the one who supposedly uncovers the conspiracy.
Okay, so after all this alleged conspiracy, we get to the discovery of Kenneka. How does the screenplay handle that?
It describes the scene. Teresa Martin, Kenneka's mother, a manager, someone identified as an undercover police officer, and the security team are there.
And the focus is on Teresa's reaction.
Yes, it zooms in on her face, her growing realization and horror as she turns back, and then the discovery itself.
A freezer.
The freezer is slightly ajar. And inside, Kenneka's body. It's presented as the tragic culmination, but within this alternative narrative, it's the end point of a very sinister plot.
But the screenplay doesn't even stop there, does it? It adds another huge layer.
No, it doesn't. Just when you think it can't get more complex, it introduces a secret society.
A secret society, seriously?
Yes, called the Order of the Jesters. And this society is alleged to be the real force behind the cover-up.
The Order of the Jesters. Wow. Okay, what is this group supposed to be?
The screenplay describes them as influential community members, people with power and connections. It claims they've been operating out of the Crown Plaza for a long time.
Operating out of the hotel.
Yes, and that they have deep ties within local institutions like law enforcement or politics, presumably.
So this wasn't just about covering up one incident, but protecting this larger organization.
That's the implication, that the cover-up was orchestrated by this powerful hidden group to protect their long-standing operations and secrets.
And how do Lenore and the mother fit into this?
Shockingly, the screenplay reveals them as members of the Order of the Jesters. Their motive, ambition, supposedly, a desire to rise within the society.
So their alleged actions were part of their involvement with this order.
According to this narrative, yes. And it also claims the Jester leaders actively tried to silence Monifa, the witness, and anyone else who might expose them.
This is quite something. Does it describe the society in more detail?
Oh, it goes into intense detail about an initiation ritual.
An initiation?
Yes, for the Royal Order of Jesters. It describes a secret chamber, the Sanctum of Shadows, dim lights, chanting, hooded figures, the works.
Well, why include all that?
It really builds the mystique, doesn't it? It paints a vivid picture of a truly clandestine and possibly sinister organization with its own elaborate practices. It adds a lot of dramatic weight to the conspiracy theory.
What happens in the ritual?
There's a blindfolded initiate kneeling before a statue, a jester statue with glowing eyes. A jester's master recites an oath. The initiate repeats it.
Okay, standard secret society stuff in fiction, maybe.
It leans into those tropes, yes. Then there's a blood offering, using a ceremonial dagger. The statue supposedly absorbs the blood.
Absorbs the blood.
That's the description. And the initiate receives a purple heart, which is placed within the statue. It's all very symbolic.
Symbolizing commitment.
Deep commitment, loyalty, secrecy. The ritual ends with a proclamation. Once a jester, always a jester. Betrayal will be met with death. Heavy stuff.
Extremely. Does it say more about this jester's master?
It does. It gives him a backstory. David Freeman, privileged background, became fascinated with the occult, traveled seeking forbidden knowledge.
And this led him to the jesters.
Yes, he found the order, joined, and apparently rose through the ranks very quickly due to his intelligence, ambition, and knack for the rituals.
So he becomes the leader running things?
He oversees their activities, maintains the secrecy, and crucially helps infiltrate local institutions. That's part of his role described in the screenplay.
And the Crown Plaza, why there?
The screenplay suggests the hotel was chosen partly because of its own, quote,
It's a dude
dark
that was
history and
loitering in
reputation,
the hallway,
maybe making it easier to
like he was
operate
waiting on the
discreetly there.
This
ride
is like something out of a
round about
movie
this
scene.
time.
It reads very much like one. The backstory even includes
So when
David
I
Freeman's
had thought
growing
about
paranoia,
that, right,
the toll his actions take, and eventually his downfall and the dismantling of the order.
and right here,
So the order gets dismantled in
once
this
you
story.
think about
Yes, his story
2:30,
is
we
presented
just
as a
seen
sort of
that on the
cautionary
camera.
tale about power and secrecy. It
So
connects back
once
to
it go
Lenore
to
and her mother being
2:30,
entangled, the
right,
threat of exposure driving their actions.
let's
It
go
provides
to
a
an
whole internal
hour
logic, however fantastical it might seem.
Exactly. It creates a self-contained narrative
to
arc
3.
for the conspiracy.
Okay, let's try to recap. We started with the known, or at least reported,
At
sequence of events.
3:32, which
The
gonna
party,
lead us
Kenneka
back
leaving,
to
the
her.
confusing movements through the hotel.
Right, the 11th floor, maybe the
I
9th.
thought
The
that was
elevator
red
passing the front
hooded,
desk, the kitchen, the parking lot.
but
Lots of
this
gaps
who
and questions
this
there.
Then,
is.
bam, this completely alternative narrative drops. Luring, lookouts, bribe security, planted evidence.
A deliberate, coordinated sequence of sinister actions, completely different from the first timeline.
And that alternative story culminates in this massive conspiracy involving the Order of the Jesters, operating secretly for years.
With initiation rituals, a powerful master, infiltration, the whole 9 yards. It elevates the alleged cover-up to an extraordinary level.
So you're left with these two starkly contrasting stories presented side by side in the source material. One tragic and confusing, the other deeply conspiratorial and complex.
That's the core tension presented, yes. Uncertainty
Right
versus
here.
a very specific, very dark,
Right here.
alleged plot.
So thinking about all of this, these two versions laid out, what single element across both narratives strikes you as raising the biggest question mark about what really happened?
That would
one
be
thing that makes you
him
go,
right
That's
here.
tough. For me, maybe it's
See
sheer
the bottom
discrepancy
of the
in
shirt?
was she impaired
And he got
but
the
walking? Was
red.
she
Come on,
giggling
bro.
in an elevator? Or was she incapacitated and being carried? Those conflicting images, even
And
within
think
the first
about what
timeline, let alone
Monifa
compared to the second,
said,
seem
right?
fundamental.
In the
How could she be
Snapchat.
both?
Yeah, that
Even in
central
the
contradiction
police
is hard
reports,
to ignore. And I
right?
guess the very fact that these two wildly different narratives can even exist based
And
on
the police
footage,
got to,
statements, alleged
look,
events.
check
What
this
does that
out,
tell you,
right?
the listener, about truth itself and how easily a story can splinter into opposing versions? Something to think about.